We welcome here today with us the Chief Electoral Officer of Meghalaya, Mr. Frederick Karkangol. We also welcome a doctor to help us understand in these hard times, Dr. Kinteolang Sanmen, Nodal Officer, Bethany Hospital. We also have a social media influencer and someone who has been active in today's world in taking part in changes in society, Mrs. Marjorie Noreen Dunai. And also we have a young person here with us today to help us understand what the youth of today want to understand about them, about us, about how young people understand electoral matters. Before we proceed any further, I would like to request our esteemed panelists, starting from this side of mine, to kindly introduce themselves.
Well, very good afternoon to all of you. I am Frederick Roy Karkangol. I am Commissioner Secretary and also Chief Electoral Officer. And it is my pleasure to be here this afternoon to talk and to, in fact, deliberate upon something which is very important as we approach the National Voters' Day, which will be on the 25th of January. So thank you for having me here.
Thank you, sir, for coming. It's always a pleasure to have you with us, sir. Ms. Mahima?
Very good afternoon. My name is Mahima Sinha, and the last in the HSSC examinations from the art stream, I stood first in the state of Meghalaya, and I'm here as a representative of the youth to speak about democracy and how we can conduct free and fair elections and how essential it is in our lives. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mahima, for representing young people and their voices. Doctor?
Hello everyone, I'm Dr. Kinteolang Sanmen. I'm the resident doctor in charge of the Nephrology and Dialysis Division of Bethany Hospital for the last 3 years. I'm also a certified professional in quality implementation in hospitals, and currently I'm the quality manager of Bethany Hospital. Also, I'm a nodal officer for COVID-19 in the hospital. Thank you for having me here.
I think we were a very popular place when it came to the COVID-19 situation this year. So I have to wait to have us to handle it. So let's start, Marjorie.
Yes. Hello everyone. I am Marjorie Noreen Dunai. I am one of the social workers lately. Me and my foundation, which was formed lately last year, we try to reach and to many downtrodden, to the people who are in real need, to give with whatever we can, and this is lately what we have been doing. And I also came from a pageantry world, winning the 2 prestigious pageant.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Marjorie. Your work during the COVID crisis was also commendable, especially on the groundwork, ma'am. So, my friends who would be watching this telecast right now through any media, let us understand that as we are moving ahead to celebrate the National Voters' Day 2021, over the past year, the Election Commission of India has conducted elections in a safe and secure manner, and this must be applauded in all matters. We come here today to discuss a very important topic, that is safe and secure elections, the way forward. The way we have defined safe and secure now is no more just about the EVM machine or the VVPAT. With COVID-19 in the scene, we must understand how the Election Commission is doing its best to ensure that we participate our rights freely, fairly, and now securely and safely. My friends, especially young people who will be watching this telecast, I welcome you to come in and understand and also deliberate and send in your thoughts to the various comment sections or mail us whatever you believe about this topic. We will start shortly with an opening statement from each of our panelists so that we can understand their view on the topic at hand and what they want or what is being done by the Election Commission to ensure that we have our rights safely and securely. Sir, Frederick Karkangol, Chief Electoral Officer, sir, we'll first begin with you with your opening statement, sir, of safe and secure elections, the way forward, sir. Very briefly, we would like to know what is the Election Commission doing? What is your office doing, sir, to ensure that we have our rights safe and secure, sir?
Well, thank you very much, Mishwa. In the pre-COVID context, as we all know, in fact, when you come to the talk about elections, there used to be a mass activity involving thousands of polling officials as well as voters. And when we talked about safe and secure in that context, it was mainly about ensuring that the EVMs were safely, managed, and that that the polling parties reach their respective polling stations safely, and that there was no law and order problem. But now, when we talk about safe and secure, there's this added dimension of health safety as health safety as well, because in fact, when it comes to the elections, it's mainly a people-to-people contact, and COVID-19 protocols demand that we should have social distancing and certain norms regarding people-to-people contact. I'm happy to share with you that the first elections which were held in India during the COVID-19 period was actually a batch of the Rajya Sabha elections which was held, and in our state, in Meghalaya, we had the first elections during the Rajya Sabha polls which were held during the COVID pandemic, and at that time no protocols were known yet, so we had to sort of do things by intuition. We of course engaged extensively with the health department, and we had to ensure that all the protocols were in place. In fact, like all these elements like the hand sanitizers and social distancing, so much so that because for the Rajya Sabha elections it was the 60 MLAs who would vote for the candidate of their choice. So we had all the honorable and members of the Legislative Assembly and the MLAs. So they were, in fact, they had to come and they had to observe all these protocols. They could not come too close to the polling, to the area where they would take their ballot paper. So they had social distance squares, and then we had wide, training for them also on how to handle things. So basically, to cut a long story short, we had to revisit many of the protocols, many of the processes, many of the procedures to ensure that there was no adverse outcome that would come after the elections. We just had the Bihar elections, which were held very successfully, and now the Election Commission has come up with a new protocol wherein there are specific critical areas in which the teams have to they have to focus on. One is the reduction in the number of voters per polling station. I mean, not more than 1,000 voters per polling station, apart from the usual protocols of sanitization and masks and hand washing and all that. So as we go into NVD this year, from Election Commission they have come out with a theme which is to make the voter empowered, vigilant, safe, and number 4 is to be informed. This is what you have in your backdrop here as well. So these are some of the areas in which conducting elections has an added dimension of challenge therein, and also in terms of campaigning also they had to be done by social media. In terms of campaigning, social media had to be done, and then a lot of online things. For example, nominations can be done through the online mode now. So a lot more digital and online interface has come into the area of electoral management more than it has been in the past. So India having its challenges, but I'm happy to share with you that our election officials have sort of risen to the challenge and have proven once again that every challenge can be met with proper management, with proper collaboration, and with proper revisiting of the protocols, processes, as well as procedures.
Thank you so much, sir. There's a saying that says that change is the only constant, and the fact that our election commission, the fact that the officials in the election commission, as well as the Chief Electoral Office here in Meghalaya are willing to change, is something that's very impressive, very encouraging to each of us. Our rights are safe. Even though in times of COVID, we can practice our voting right safely. Thank you so much, sir. So we will go, since we're talking of COVID times, and again, who is better to talk about COVID than a medical person. So we have here with us a doctor who's been very active during a period that we had seen as a crisis in our state. A doctor from a hospital who had lost their founder to the virus itself. Thank you, Dr. Kinteulang, for joining us. What are your views on the situation at hand? What do you think can be done in a more better way when it comes to election practices in a more planned way? As you said, you do quality management system, and with it comes risk management also. And in risk management, what is the risk mitigation that you think can be done to ensure that even if another pandemic comes, it can be held in a better manner in the present electoral practices that are already there? What other practices can be done, sir?
You know, an election during a global pandemic can indeed present challenges to the voters and organizers as well. But from a medical point of view, I can really say that there's absolutely nothing about COVID-19 which should prevent us from exercising our rights or, letting our voice heard in choosing our leaders. Just from a medical point of view, when we talk about election, I can see it as something opposite to social distancing. There are events being held which deliberately bring people together to exchange ideas and arguments for the future direction of the community. Mass rallies are being held, and then leaflets are being distributed, then house visits are being done. And when it comes to pandemic and conducting of election, I feel like the most important thing is the health of everyone else, right? And there is another thing, like if we have an election in a pandemic, the turnout can be really hit. The voter turnout, in which many people may stay away from the polls. We can see for example, last year in the month of February, the Iran elections, the voter turnout was very low amidst the COVID-19 outbreak. But on the other hand, we have a South Korean election in the month of April where the voter turnout was one of the highest in the last 2 decades. And we know that the lower voter turnout is a bad thing for a democracy. And then the question also arises whether the turnout is more on the other demographic groups, like the people with comorbidities and elderly people. But so I feel like a mixed system of voting can be a potential solution, like maybe for the elderly people and the people with comorbidities, remote voting can be done, for example, a postal ballot. And for people with, the youngsters and all, like Sir has said, that with less people in the polling station and with more social distancing and wearing of masks. From my own experience, I have realized in this pandemic, when our hospital was the first one to be hit, I should say I was the main high-risk contact in the hospital, as I was with Sir and the management every single day, being the nodal officer. But what I realized was wearing a mask was the most important preventive measure, So I feel like apart from social distancing, sanitization and all, wearing a mask is one of the most preventive methods, to make the election safe and secure.
Thank you so much, Doctor. So wearing a mask. So a lot of us nowadays have headed into this new normal without wearing a mask. But here's doctors directly saying, wear a mask is your only prevention. And the fact that elections in Bihar were held safely is also another eye-opener to us. That we must understand that when elections come, or when it even comes to registration, getting ourselves registered as voters, we must not be afraid, but come ahead and get ourselves registered. Because it's your right, no one else can take it away from you. Thank you so much, sir. So we'll go to Mrs. Marjorie, ma'am. Ma'am, I believe you have your own foundation now, and I can call you a social influencer, a social media influencer, which is a term that's very recently in the news over the last few months when COVID hit all of us and we were made to switch to digital media. What do you think, what role do people in your field, even in the pageant field, play in bringing people out to get themselves registered as voters and to also vote? And in terms of COVID, in terms of the fact of safe and secure, what role can people in your field?
Thank you. Yes, now as we are facing this challenge that I may say, the COVID for the past few months back, by now, with this generation, I feel we should adjust with the situation. Keeping in mind with COVID-19, I feel it is equally important for us to take care of our health. That is to maintain what the protocols provided by the government, the health department. But it's also important for us equally that we should vote. That is, we should exercise our right to vote, empowered to us by the Constitution, because here is where we can voice, we can express the freedom given to us. And here also is where everyone can interact, and I feel that from my end, appeal to the public, to the people, that we can voice our representative, we can voice our opinion by giving the right decision to vote. From my pageantry field, I've seen lately that many have been done through online. So I would suggest to the government that since everything have been done to online, so we can bring back, encourage the postal voting or the online voting. And we can also minimize the overcrowding by reducing the canvassing or to any kind of social gathering which encourage with the public crowding. So these things which I feel, for my opinion, to talk to express to its public, to its people.
Thank you so much, Marjorie, ma'am. So we understand that despite hard times, our democracy has always been strong. Even through the terminus of times, the democracy of India, the Republic of India, stood still. And we must remember that it is the Election Commission who has always stood by the rights of the people to get a government elected, or to even remove a government that's not performing through the ballot or even through the EVM machine. Ms. Mahima Sinha, a voice of young people. It must be remembered that throughout history, it has always been the young people who bring in change. Revolutions have always started because young people said, no, we're not going to keep silent. We're going to keep fighting, and we're going to bring a change. Ms. Mahima Sinha, what is your view? What is your opening statement on this issue of safe and secure elections, the way forward? As a young person, what are your ambitions when you look at the election system of this country, the electoral process of this country? What is your view, Ms. Mahima?
Thank you. I'd like to begin. As a child, when I reached the age of appropriate reason, I'd always been the one who would be immensely fascinated by the evolution and transcendence of human society. Like the human society, the way it would transcend from age to age, and the change it would bring along owing to that transcendence and evolution. And as humans, we have stood witness throughout history that many myriad of revolutions and rebellions and wars and destruction and loss of lives have occurred for one sake, that we have what is called freedom today. So for the sake of freedom, many rebellions and revolutions and wars have been fought. And the right to freedom, the democracy that we have with us today, of course many of us are born into a generation where we may not have faced the wrath that had arisen due to the lack of freedom, but our ancestors have been a witness to it. They have fought for what we call democracy today. They have fought for what we call the freedom that we have today. And so it is very important for us to acknowledge and to emphasize and to hold true importance to this true meaning of democracy. And election is definitely an inevitable tenet of democracy, which is what I believe. It is the fact, in fact. So, and as young people, because we stand as the future of our nation, we stand as the face of the future generations. So this is what I believe, that awareness and proper education about our constitutional rights about what the true essence of democracy is, which inevitably is the importance of how fundamentally important it is for us young people to know the immensity and the atrocity of what one vote can do, what one participant above the age of 18, exercising its universal adult suffrage can do. It can shape the nation. So this is what I believe, that awareness among individuals, because unfortunately though, and this is not to sound patronizing at all, many of people my age in our country today, in India, they really do not know the basic electoral elements. They really are not aware of the political parties. They are not really aware of the political situation, the economic background, what our country needs, and as to pertaining what the leader that promises us in its manifestos, promise us to provide with. So, owing to that, I feel an immense importance for education among the youth and, young people.
Thank you so much, Mahima. And with that being said, that the fact that young people need to be educated, I must bring forward here a fact that the Election Commission has come up with an initiative known as the Electoral Literacy Club. And I think, sir, if you could add to what an Electoral Literacy Club is, so that Mahima ma'am and all of the youth out there in different schools can understand and maybe pressurize their own schools to begin an ELCs in their schools, sir.
Yeah. Well, just to add on to, and before I take on the question of the, of these electoral literacy clubs, I would just like to add on a bit on what the Election Commission has done in the context of COVID-19. On the 25th of January this year, that's on the National Voters' Day, all over India, there'll be the, the launch of the e-Epic. So far, when we talk about an Epic card, it's only that physical Epic card which we carry within ourselves. With us in the physical dimension. But come 25th, from the Election Commission, they will launch what is known as e-Epic, so which will be downloadable on your mobile phones, and which will be portable anywhere. Say you are traveling anywhere also, so you will have it on your on your mobile set in a DigiLocker form. So you won't have to hunt for this card. It'll be embedded with the QR code, and you'll be able to sort of download it. So this is also one of the steps in the context of COVID. So this will be a very useful, I think, kind of application for citizens all over the country. And also regarding one of the panelists had mentioned about what other measures need to be done. One is the Form 12D, which the Election Commission has recently introduced in the Bihar elections, which is basically a kind of a postal ballot for senior citizens. So basically they can vote from home. There'll be a Form 12D in which they can enroll themselves. They can cast their vote through the Form 12D, and from election officials they'll go to the houses of the senior citizens, and they'll come and collect and so that helps the senior citizens to sort of avoid coming to the polling station, but they would have casted their vote at their own houses. So this is also one of the steps in which you prevent comorbidities. This comorbidities among senior citizens is quite high. So postal votes now has been extended to the senior citizens as well. So these are two very significant steps that are being taken by the Election Commission to ensure that no voter is left behind. Talking about electoral literacy clubs, in fact we have a program called SWEEP, first of all, which is the Systematic Voter Education and Electoral Participation Program, which is a tremendous voter education program that has started right from the first NVD that we had, and so on and so forth. Now it has come to the ELCs. The electoral literacy clubs are basically, groups of like-minded students formed in various institutions, schools as well as colleges, and where there are no schools and colleges, they are known as these, voter forums. It was launched in 2018, and there has been a steady growth. And last year we were faced with the challenge of not having any schools or colleges, the schools and colleges being shut down, no academic session. But I'm happy that in collaboration with the Meghalaya MUN, we sort of conceptualize what are known as online ELCs. So through online activities, spanning various areas like various competitions, as well as talks with influencers, so on and so forth. We've tried to sort of sustain the sort of interest in these electoral activities, and it's by engagement. Not only it's not like an academic class which is dull, but it is through engagement, through activities. Right here in this very center, we have what is known as the ELC corner, which maybe after this panel discussion you will have a look, and you will see many activities there, audio-visual activities as well. This was launched in the last NVD last year. So it's a place where young students will get to know about the polling process, about the electoral process, who's a presiding officer, what do the other polling officials do, how to vote, and what are the challenges faced by the election system. As my young friend here just mentioned that awareness is what is required. So these are some of the measures that are in place through ELC, through sweep, to sort of ensure that the awareness not only widens but it also deepens.
Thank you so much, sir. It's always an honor to hear you, sir. I think so. A lot of questions that the panelists might have had, sir. Having you here is like a blessing to all of us. All of us are having them answered. So, if we had audiences, we could have said, let's go to the audiences and see if they have any questions. But we won't disappoint our panelists because we did send a survey form to some of the ELCs, and they did send in some questions that they would like to ask to all of 4 panelists, and any of you can take these questions up and answer. So just have a look at the first question that a panelist, that a student had sent in. Okay, so a student is asking us, a lot of people don't understand the true value of their votes and are simply slaves of their own greed or blinded by their foolish and blind faith in certain leaders. How do we make them realize their own foolishness and allow them to mend their ways? So would you like to take that, sir?
Okay, it's a very loaded question, and it's a question that is grappled, I think, by all of us on a day-to-day basis. See, a vote is something as precious as the breath that you take, because you may have, as a foreigner, suppose I go to some other place, there are many things I can do. Maybe I can open a business, I can visit many parts of that particular country, I can get employment, but I'm not a citizen. Why? Because I can't vote. So same here also, in our country also, there are many other rights that can be enjoyed by everyone else. But they are citizens, they become full-fledged citizens only when they have the right to vote, the right to elect, and the right to carve out the destiny of their own country or the state. So the right to vote is as precious as the air that you breathe. And if you take this lightly, then I think you are devaluing your citizenship to that particular country, and you are sort of undermining this inalienable right that has been given to you, that which your forefathers have fought so hard to get. So I think use it wisely. Just as we have one life to live, so it's one man, one vote. So the vote that you actually have been given is something which is extremely valuable, and it's so precious, because with that vote, you can be part of a movement that can make your immediate life better. So I think it's something which has to be drilled into the minds, into the hearts of everyone who's an eligible voter.
Thank you, sir. I'll just go straight to Marjorie, ma'am, just to add, what do you think do influencers do in this situation? How can you influence people? At this, like a lot of people do think, as the question said, we're just simply slaves. So what can influencers do in a very positive manner?
Okay. Me having this opportunity here, I voice myself to influence to all the youths, to all the citizens, to other people, that we get, as what Sir has said, we get once in a lifetime, that we get to use our vote once in 5 years. So do not waste the opportunity given to us, because this is a democracy. It is of the people, by the people, for the people. When we say by, which means by us. So let that opportunity not be taken by others, but the choice to be made by our own self. That we should come forward and not be scared of the virus or whatever may be, because this opportunity is the best powerful, empowered to us by the Constitution to exercise our vote. Having said that, we should also take care of ourselves as to take all the precautionary measures not to be affected by these diseases. So my voice to all the other people that we live in a country called India, we define democracy and our vote defines our identity. So let us make the name itself democracy within India and let it not fade away.
Truly, ma'am, truly. Doctor, would you like to add anything to that question?
Yeah, you know, sometimes the common way people think to give up their power is they think that they don't have any, you know. That's why they feel like even if they vote or they don't vote, like it's the same, you know, like no development, no changes and all. But I think we should find ways to make them feel reassured that and make them feel more empowered that a vote can really make a change in the society, you know. That's all I want to say.
And also I would like to say that oftenly during elections we find that we oftenly fall prey under various circumstances, be it in the quick cash or other external forces, so that we should not fall under any of these prey, that we will make our own wise decision of whatever we decided to vote. So come and be a responsible citizen.
Thank you, Marjorie. We'll go to one more question asked by one of the students directly to me. Why do we need to ensure that people can exercise their political rights and simultaneously ensure that their health and safety amidst COVID is prioritized? I would love Doctor to comment on this. Why do we need to ensure that people exercise their political rights despite COVID being prioritized and knowing that COVID is dangerous?
See, I have said before, there is really nothing about COVID that should prevent us from voting, you know. If you feel like you're happy enough with the present maybe regime, like, okay, we can postpone the election, but I feel like postponing the election is not so really important, you know. Of course, conducting an election amidst the pandemic is about the health of everyone, but with all the safety measures in place, I think it's important, you know, to have an election to encourage people to go to vote. And that's what healthy democracy is all about.
Thank you so much. Sir, ready? What do you like CEOs to say? Why are we prioritizing elections despite COVID being there? Why is election so important?
Well, both of them are equally important. You need to have health. That, of course, is beyond question. And also, in fact, elections also is something which is equally important, because we have chosen this path to be a democratic country. And in a democracy, the way and the method that you choose your leader is by casting a vote every 5 years, by sort of renewing exercising your right to franchise, which is part of the Constitution. So as a citizen of this country, it is enjoined on us as a constitutional duty to elect our leaders every 5 years. Of course, we have to do it with adequate protocols in place. And as has been pointed out by me and my other fellow panelists, with adequate protocols in place, both can go ahead. We just had the Bihar elections, as you've just seen, which went on fairly successfully, and where we had no such problems. We had the US elections, which we just saw, where people voted in huge numbers to cast their vote. And US, mind you, is the country with the highest number of COVID fatalities in the world, but still elections were held and they were not interrupted. And then you also have the cases of South Korea, as was pointed out by my other fellow panelists here. So with adequate protocols and with adequate safeguards, I'm sure that both can coexist and should go on. This is the new normal that we have, as you mentioned. So we have to adapt to the new normal, and we have to go on with life. It cannot mean that we should remain shuttered and we should be sort of unhinged from our normal processes. But of course, safety and protocol is important. Is extremely critical. So side by side, as I've just mentioned, those examples, they themselves are powerful testimonies to how both can coexist.
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir. Madam, do you have anything to add to that question?
Yes, same thing as what Jose has said. We are living in this generation. We have been coping with this virus for the quite few months back. So I feel like we should be adjustable to adapt and to move forward. Do not have the fear just for the sake that the virus is here and we should not vote. We should take this as a chance, because this is the opportunity for us to face and fight the virus, keeping in mind that we should also follow the protocols, precautionary measures provided to us by the government, by the health department, because these, as what Sir have said, as equally is important with our health, it is also important that we should vote, because vote is being given to us only once, that in 5 years that we can exercise and we express the decision, the right decision that we make. If we want a developing country, a progress country, state, then just sitting at home won't do. We have to come out and perform and exercise our duty. So this is what I have to say.
Thank you, Madam. Ms. Mahima, do you have anything to add to that question?
In context with the COVID, I
Yes.
think we are very much frequented and treated.
Okay, fine. So one more question we have when it comes to the open round, and it's a question that is youth related. Okay. So the question is, I'll let Mahima take this first because it's youth related. Why do you think young people refrain from taking part in the electoral process, and what do you think can be done differently to ensure that young people take part actively in the electoral process?
Yes, as I have stated before in my opening statement itself, it's unfortunately the lack of awareness that prevails in our country. India stands as the world's largest democratic republic, but it is very unfortunate that most of the youth that actually turn out for the votes as well are mostly ignorant. That's what the survey had said, and are mostly ignorant of various political values, political elements, and maybe because there had been witnesses to such unethical practices like casting of votes in the name of some greed related like cash and all of that sort. So most of it's like unethical. So we have had witness to that. So what I do believe is the lack of awareness, and the solution to that, which I said, is to reinvigorate the passion, what we call like the passion, like just like how a passion, invigorates among youth when they rebel for something. Say various students, as youth, we can change the face of the world if we want to, because we have the prowess, we have the power, we have the time, which is most important. So what I do believe, in order to change that the pattern, that is the paradigm that in order to make a shift into that, I believe that there needs to reinvigorate the passion among youth for politics, and how inevitable it is from us, from society, because most of us, like I have observed it firsthand when there would be electoral campaigns in our school. So most of our classmates wouldn't be interested. They would just scoff at politics. Oh, it's not our stuff. It's not what we should deal with. It doesn't relate with us. But I would like to paraphrase Socrates here. He once said that politics and men are indeed inseparable. So that feeling of empowerment pertaining to politics and political actions needs to be invigorated among us, among youth, and then only I think there would be an immense, a tremendous zeal and enthusiasm for casting of votes.
Thank you, Ms. Mahima. Frederick sir, would you like to add anything or to whatever Mahima has
Yeah, you'll
said?
have to ask me the question again.
The question was, in today's world, young people refrain from taking part in the electoral process, in the active part in the electoral process. At most, they might go to vote, but it stops at there. there's no activism related to that. They don't, just to add more that question, they don't question those in power. How can we encourage young people to really take part in the electoral process?
Yeah, I think young people are now becoming more and more engaged actually, because through the social media, they are getting digitally engaged. If you look at the Twitter, you look at the Facebook and the Instagram, and all of them, especially Twitter, you see them to be much more engaged than in the past, because they have a forum now to voice their opinions. They have a forum to sort of share their with like-minded friends, and also to come up with counterpoints, as well as with a different position on many issues. So nowadays, anything you see in the news, there'll always be a hashtag something, hashtag this, hashtag that. So that itself shows that our young people are very digitally engaged, and they are not, and they are engaged on a wide variety of issues. So I think now is the time when the youth are involved more than ever before. So and social media and the forum that they use is a very powerful tool and a very powerful platform for taking this momentum forward.
Thank you so much, sir. Anyone from panelists' side of what we can do or what can be done to encourage young people to take more active part in electoral politics?
For me, being in healthcare, I realized the health literacy of our people is very poor. People with low health literacy tend to have more complications, more sickness and all. Of course, yes, the youths are really more engaged at the present era, but maybe likewise, just like the health literacy, maybe the electoral literacy of our students also is very poor. For example, if we teach our students from lower classes about good health, about preventive factors and all, and also if we teach them from young age about the importance of voting and all, and maybe they will feel like, yes, voting is really important. And of course, an educated voter is an empowered voter.
Thank you so much, Doctor. Ma'am, anything from your side that you'd like to add to that question?
As what Sir and everyone have said, with the latest app, with the latest technology, with the social media, I think all are wise enough to understand and to exercise and come and vote, keeping in mind taking care of ourselves.
Thank you so much, ma'am. So we've come up with we've ended up with the first part of our talk show, that is the open-ended questions to all of the panelists. Right now we'll be moving to a part in our talk show that is specific to the expertise of our own panelists pertaining to the topic at hand. I will begin with Ms. Mahima. Ms. Mahima, are you willing to take this question? Okay. So the question is, young people today have social media as a tool, but most of us tend to use it for other purposes. What can the Election Commission do to ensure that young people use social media, follow the Election Commission page and get updates on election news?
An easy solution would be to bribe them with iPhones. Just kidding. That's very prevalent again. Social media has had been a very inevitable part of our lives as youth. Like that, an inevitable word would be an understatement, because it has been crucial, extremely crucial, because it influences us. What we see on the screen is what we believe to be true, be it beauty standards, be it the societal standards, be it being excellent in one field or the other. This is how the screen has inflicted upon us. So yes, on a negative side of the spectrum, it is distracting. It gives us, it introduces us to a sphere where we are not ourselves. Actually, it introduces us to a sphere of mental unclarity, that also leads to depression, because due to lack of validation, because validation has become so important on the internet. When you post a picture, you need validation. When you post a status, you need people to agree with you, and when there are contradictions, you get mentally disturbed. So on the question that you have raised, what the Election Commission would do, mobilize us more towards, towards becoming eligible and like effective voters, is maybe to make the content more interesting. This is what I think, because we are after Instagram filters. That's what I believe. So maybe if the content is more interesting, or maybe if the election itself would know better, but maybe if the content, to encourage us young people to take part in certain processes, if it's more interesting, more, that speaks volumes about our participation and how it can influence us and how it can influence our other people, maybe, so that can encourage us.
Thank you so much, sir. So would you like to?
Yeah, so it's very interesting to hear the perspective from a young friend here. It has always been the consistent endeavor of at least of the Office of the Chief Electoral Officer to sort of have a wide engagement with all sorts of creative communities. So we've utilized, well-known groups like Shillong Chamber Choir as well as Somersault, and we've also had, we've used art, we've used, creative expressions. Very complex, concepts have been explained by way of short videos as well as animation clips. And we've also had contests and competitions. So we have tried to use the vocabulary of the youth to sort of reach out to the to the wider public. I'm happy to share with you that amongst the official government pages, the Facebook page of the CEO is quite widely followed actually, compared to quite a few of the other sites. Of course, now Health Department may be under the spotlight because of obvious reasons, but the social media handles of the CEO has always been widely followed, despite being something perceived as as a subject which is perhaps perceived as dull. But by engaging with these creative partners and putting out creative medium, we've tried to sort of maximize the reach, and it's only by doing constant engagement and through creative means, through creative medium, by provoking thought, by having music, a blend of music and good audiovisual content, that we can seize eyeballs, so to say. So a young friend is here, plus social media influencers are here. They know how best to sort of attract the eyeballs. So this is a constant endeavor, and even under Election Commission, as I've just mentioned to you, there's this program called SWEEP, which is a systematic voter education and this wide electoral participation program. They make conscious efforts to ensure that there is a lot of creative content out there. I'm not talking only with regard to Meghalaya, but also in other states. For example, here we also reach out quite widely through the FM station as well, which is, we know that it has a large following. And in the villages we've had road shows. We've had road shows, especially on awareness on EVM and VVPAT. So there's a constant endeavor to engage maximum people as possible, and to target the youth in their language through creative means.
Thank you so much, sir. So we'll go with a direct question to Miss Marjorie, ma'am. Ma'am, are you ready? Okay. So the question for you, ma'am, is quite similar to the foundation that you're working. I believe you have a foundation. So what do you think, again, is it enough, whatever the Election Commission is doing, to reach out to these underprivileged societies, to the underprivileged of our own society itself? Is it enough, or is there much more left to be done?
Okay. Since I have experience, interact with a couple of people and different sections of society, why do we have to reach them? That's the question here. Why? It's because they needed help. Forget about even to vote first for now, pardon me, but the first thing is what they should eat, what they'll eat next. That is the most important question that the government should take this. I take this opportunity to voice for the government to reach out to the poor, the needy, which requires a lot of attention here. Having said that, yes, it is equally important for them to vote, because voting here is also a one-way channel for them to express their opinion, their views, and the decision. And I feel from the Election Commission, they have to, there are still more steps required for them with precautionary measures that are required, because I've seen them, even there are families who doesn't even have a proper mask. There are families who cannot reach to even have sanitization. Even we have seen that from the government side they have been trying, but when I myself and the foundation tried to reach to various places, we see that people here not forget about the mask. The food itself is not even provided to them. They need their daily rations, which are required. That too, which they don't get, the daily food. So from the Election Commission side, I would appeal if it could be set all the loop, the corners, the places require with the sanitizers, with the masks, and with a proper guidance to be given to the people, especially to the down-privileged who doesn't even understand much about the taking care and even social distancing itself. So I feel I should voice myself here as to appeal towards the government and even towards the Election Commission to do something to help the poor and the needy at this point of time.
Frederick, sir, is that a feasible idea of outreaching to the underprivileged society?
See, our role is limited mainly to the conduct of elections and to educate voters. Now, providing those various facilities will be probably a concern which is more pan-government. So, then of course, when when an election takes place, then it's our role and our responsibility to ensure that those facilities, those safeguards are made available. But on a day-to-day basis, I think it's more of a pan-government kind of of a requirement. But as far as elections go, and as far as on the day of the polling and in the run-up to the poll, as you've seen in Bihar, I'm sure that our state, along with other states, will also be equally proactive in that regard.
Thank you so much, sir.
Yeah.
Doctor, a direct question to you related to your field. COVID-19 is an example of pandemic. We had other pandemics before. Do you think there is a need to change the election system in a way that people don't need to gather around and come and vote? Or do you think the old system is strong enough to stand against these changes or against another global pandemic, God forbid, comes again?
I feel like when we talk about pandemic and election, we have seen the Bihar elections, the American election and all. I feel the old system is, with slight changes, with safety measures in place, like I've said before, it's still okay, for conducting an election. I feel like there's no, if should another pandemic come, even if we happen to conduct an election with the old style, I feel like it's still safe enough with safety measures in place from a medical point of view.
Thank you so much, sir. So we'll end with the last question to our Honorable CEO today. So the question is, looking at the way forward, safe and secure election, the idea of digital polling. We had a debate competition earlier talking about digital polling. How safe comparatively to an EVM or to postal ballot will an electronic voting system, if followed online, be, sir?
See, some tentative beginnings are starting with e-EPIC. So that is one step forward. Regarding digital polling, of course, it requires a constitutional amendment, because right now the Constitution, as per the RP Act, as per the RP Act as well as per the Constitution, it has prescribed that that the method of voting can be through the EVMs. So whether digital polling is something which they'll have to take a national consensus, because there are still large areas in the country which are on the other side of the digital divide, that do not have access to internet, and perhaps it's an idea which can be tried out in some urban areas and some cities, but the large parts of India do not have internet access, and in some of the capital cities also the internet is quite erratic. Apart from that, the safety angle is also there, where in terms of data privacy, I mean, how because it is a secret ballot. How secure is your secret ballot also? Right now, we can even see that bank accounts are being hacked, emails are being hacked, right? So there's a lot of outage. I mean, frequently we hear that Facebook and Google, there's a lot of outage, a lot of data breach. So until all those factors are made secure and there are adequate safeguards in place, I think it's an idea which is still under construction, I mean, so to say. But a tentative beginning has been made with this e-epic. Yeah, of course, there are some countries like Estonia which have already started digital polling, but those are small countries with very good connectivity, where the population is also largely literate and they sort of are not influenced by other factors. So in India, I think we still have some way to go.
Thank you so much, sir, for your thoughts on that. So we've come to the ending part of our talk show. That is the concluding remarks of the panelists, and they'll be concluding whatever they understand from here, and they'll be giving us a small message for National Voters' Day. I'd like to begin from our youth panelist today, Ms. Mahima, a 1-minute message from yours, concluding the whole talk.
Do vote if you're 18 and above. It is very essential, and be aware of what the situation is, what it is prevailing. Be aware of the party that you selectively choose. Be aware of its principles, and be aware of your own ethics and your own principles, and do vote. It is extremely crucial for you, for the next generation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Mahima. Doctor?
Well, to conclude, I feel like even doctors have such an important voice in the voting process, Many times my patients would say to me, "Doctor, some people say I have to wear a mask. Some say it's dangerous to wear a mask." So, as clinicians and physicians, we carry that kind of voice which patients can trust. So I feel like I would like to suggest, sir, if you can involve doctors from everywhere, encourage them to encourage back their patients to go for vote. And I feel that will be a powerful message for the citizens around the state.
Thank you so much, Doctor, for that thought-provoking idea. Madam Nash.
Yeah. Again here, as I've said, I know I have reached to different different sections of society who are in deep need of help. But remember that your vote is very important and your vote is crucial, because if you come and vote, you make a decision and you can transform and you bring the development, because this right is the most powerful right empowered to you. Please do not miss. Come and vote for the betterment of this generation and the betterment of the generation to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Marjorie, ma'am. And I'd like to end with you, Frederick, sir, today, your concluding statement.
Yeah, so to combine both the elements of the topic, which is safe and secure elections, I would say that yes, maintain social distance, but don't distance yourself from enrolling and from voting. And also going on with the trend of digital voting, I would say why stand in line when you can do it online? And also along with the theme of the National Voters' Day, which is to happen in another week's time from now, we urge and we call upon all voters to make themselves empowered, vigilant, safe, as well as informed, because the ultimate aim of the Election Commission is to ensure that no voter is to be left behind.
Thank you so much, sir. So we've come to the concluding part of this talk show, Democracy Talks. We have a lot of 4 panelists here who've given their ideas, who've given us thought-provoking ideas. I, Meshok Parmaltha, the moderator, would end with this saying: you must practice your rights, because rights without you exercising them are just in paper. We need to practically implement them. The Election Commission of India, as well as the Chief Electoral Officer of Meghalaya and his officers, have ensured that the system is safe, that the system is secure. What are you afraid of? Come out of your cocoon. It's time to get yourself registered if you've not, and the next election, it's time for you to go get out and vote. Thank you so much. Thank you to all our panelists, Sir, Ms. Mahima, Madam Marjorie, as well as Dr. Kintula. We've had a very good talk. I'll see you guys on another talk show of us, Democracy Talks. Until then, take care, stay safe, and wear a mask, and exercise your vote. Thank you.